Welcome to the Girl from Bombay podcast with Jules Williams. Telling stories, touching lives, connecting people, bringing encouragement and hope. And now here's Jules.
Hey, and welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, The Girl from Bombay. And yes, I am the girl from Bombay. And with me here is my very favorite person and a very good friend, Gretchen Cadillac. So, hi, Gretchen, and welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
And if you have been following us, you might have seen that we have done a few podcasts now. And we are actually now going to complete the one that we started last time on self care. And today we are going to talk about a few things as to how we can take care of ourselves. And I remember the last time I said to someone, "Oh, this is just a woman thing." But I think, no, even if it's a man, he can hear it and, take care of himself. And so my apologies to the men. So Gretchen, we were talking about the fact that if we can't take our care of ourselves, we can't help anybody. And so we need to prioritize self-care. And so what does that look like to you, Gretchen?
Well, thank you for Jules for saying that. And I love that you're expanding it to all people. Well, I think we all need to take care of ourselves. For me, it looks like when you look into your heart and your soul, what are you doing or not doing to take care of the truth about who you are? So that can resonate in a lot of different ways. It can be internal work, it can be external work. But I think that, we've been so blessed, Jules, to be together and to talk about some of these things, because I think that a lot of times when we talk about self-care, people get a little nervous because we have to talk about ourselves, right? Because we're more comfortable generally, particularly as women. We like to talk about all the things we're doing for other people. And this is just one way we're turning the lens back on ourselves and saying, okay, what can I do? And I call self-care filling your cup. How can you fill your cup so that you can pour out to other people, the people that you care about? One of the things about doing that is once you pour it out, your cup gets empty, right? So you have to constantly work on refilling your cup. And how do you do that? So we've been trying to find ways. There is no one right way. Let's talk about that. There's no one size fits all for self-care. It's kind of changing all the time. You might find something that is, you feel really like your cup is filled with maybe going out to tend to your flowers or taking a walk outside or a long hot bath. But maybe as time goes on and you transition to different phases of life or different situations, different seasons, you find that self-care will evolve and it will change forward to other things, and maybe it will fall back to things that have worked in the past. So one thing I really want to emphasize is that self-care is really reflection of yourself. Really look at self-awareness and the ability to just take time to breathe and understand what it is that you may need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's like really important to really hang on and hook on to God, because to realize that I'm special because He made me, to realize I'm special, that I'm his daughter, and to fall back, like to go back to the Word of God, to spend time with Him. If I don't do that, like my whole day is kind of, it's like weird. I didn't do that. I didn't do that, And I like to go and, spend time reading what God has to say to me and spending time talking with Him. And we talk to Him all day because, you're connected. You're always with God and you talk to Him all day. And I think to me, it starts there. And then, of course, I have to make extra efforts to get out in the sun. I have to make an extra effort to garden, or to spend time with Oliver, my cat. And those things to me are important. And so, like you said, to everyone, it's something different. And it'll be sound bizarre as it may, but to me, part of self care is cooking. And I find such a great joy in like actually cooking for myself or for other people, but for myself, it's like it's really special. And I think that's part of self care.
Well, I think that's really important. And I think what you're talking about when you talked about talking with God and starting out your day, I look at that as grounding. How do you ground yourself to start your day, right? And it can be a daily devotional. There's so many good ones out there, amazing podcasts. Simply opening the Bible and taking a look at that. A lot of people I know like to meditate in the morning. They like to journal. They like to get their vitamin D with their cup of coffee by sitting outside and just, basking in the sunlight. I think these are really important, particularly when you have these days. And it's important to start your day with something that really grounds you in your faith, in your actions, and your words, just really makes you feel like you've started with something that is really a high priority for you. And I do think it's kind of the base of your house, right? And everything kind of goes up from there, but you have to have a strong foundation.
Yeah, that's so good because the Bible talks about that. If you build your house on the sand, it's not going to stand. But you need a firm foundation, and God is our firm foundation. That's so beautiful. The way you put it, that grounding, it's so important to be grounded in God, and then nothing shakes you. I mean, you will tend to shake, you tend to feel weak, you tend to feel you're going to fall, but then God's going to sustain you through the trial, through the difficulties. And the difficulties that are every day, big and small, and all kinds, and what we do with it.
Yes.
That's the important thing. And I think I read somewhere it says, live. You're given this day, just live. Live it to the best you can, because we can worry about tomorrow. There's only one thing I'm very certain of, and that's the uncertainty of life.
Yes.
I've lost so many people just in this past year. It's not incredible. And so it's just that the uncertainty. So how do you live your best life? How do you do the best you can for that day? And so talking from prioritizing your self-care to going, I think one of the important ingredients is to seek support.
Yes.
Okay? Sometimes we hesitate to ask family and friends for help.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
I think that's vital, Jules. And I think that I have found so many women that, and I'm one of them, that has a really hard time asking for help, because for us, it feels like we're weak and we can't do it, or we don't have the wherewithal to complete a task, or, we're not feeling right. And the more I've entered into this journey, the more I realize that not only is it important to have help, the other side of it is so important too, because the people we ask for help are so grateful, because now they have a link to who you are and what you authentically need, versus having to guess or just kind of have the superficial existence. And I think that asking someone for help really is important, because you're able to not only voice your needs, but have someone hear them, and then they can come and say, well, here's an opportunity for me to help you. And one of the things I found too is that, what really cool thing about social media is that we've made therapy okay, where we really think that mental wellness is important. And so if perhaps you don't have a community that you can reach out to friends, family, or you're not feeling like it's a safe place, there are really like a lot of good ways to seek therapy now. And they're a lot more viable than they used to be. And it can be just a Zoom chat, but you're not alone. And I think that's a really important thing. And if you really need help, and help can be in a variety of, smalls and large things, right?
Right.
That I think it's really important that you have these now little ways that we can reach out and find help.
Yeah, and I think that's that actually is, it just brings me back to the place when we started out. You started out with a self-care group, what, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And initially, I was really hesitant to be in that community because I didn't know anybody. Everybody was new, and we got together from a writers group. For those
Right.
who are, tuning and listening, how I know Gretchen, and so we continued meeting all through the pandemic.
Yes.
And now it's become we're the same 6 people that were there, but it's a deeper relationship than we had. And I think that helped so much during the pandemic. And even
Mhm.
after that, with the things that I have been through, Gretchen, you stayed in touch, and you stayed connected, and that you have been part of my support system. And the other thing also that I want to share here is sometimes people are not always able to help you, but ask, because at the most they'll say no, and they may have very valid reasons for saying their no. But then you can find somebody else. But unless you ask, how will you know?
Right.
Right? So you got to ask. And so don't be hesitant to ask for help. I'll just give case in point. This morning I got a collar for Oliver. uh, it was for the fleas, and he doesn't have any, but it's summertime. And so I know I'm going to have a real problem opening that container. And somebody who came to drop it, I said, can you please open this for me, and then can you put it on the cat, so that for that time, that was my little support that I needed, and there was somebody to do it. And that's a small thing, but whatever kind of support you need, reach out. There's always somebody willing to help you and go the extra mile.
Exactly. I love that, Jules.
Yeah. And we all need that. Sometimes we are called upon to help, give someone a listening ear. And Gretchen, I really so value your friendship, and you've always been there for me, especially this past year. And I really appreciate that so much. And
Thank you, Jules. Well, it is my honor to be in your circle of support.
oh, thank you so much, Gretchen. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a very, very important, almost kind of taboo and misunderstood subject, is setting boundaries.
Mm,
I'll let you take that and
okay.
talk about setting boundaries for your own well-being.
I love that. And I have really shifted my thoughts about boundaries. And I actually have added an adjective, and that is radical boundaries. And the reason I've added that is because I think sometimes we're so hesitant to set boundaries, but sometimes we have to, and sometimes they have to be radical. So I talk a lot about boundaries in the context of a garden. So if we have a garden, we've got beautiful flowers, and those people in our life are our flowers, right? They give back to us with their beauty and their light and their love. And then sometimes in our garden, we've got some weeds, right? And those weeds really kind of suffocate the relationship with the flowers. So what I really tried to talk about with boundaries is just we just need to weed our garden. And you need to look at the weeds in your garden, the people in your garden, the events and the situations in your garden. Are they, I call this too, battery chargers or battery drainers? Do they light you up or do they drain you? So what's really important about that is that if you have too many weeds, if you have too many situations or people in your life that are draining your batteries, that are stifling your flower garden, you just have to look at what is it that is no longer of service to me. Now, that doesn't mean that those people or those events or that situation isn't something that is workable perhaps for someone else. All I'm saying is that boundaries speak to you. Does this work for me? Does this grow my garden? Do I feel better around this situation at this job with this person? Or do I feel deflated? Do I feel maybe even not safe, right? So I think that what's really important about boundaries is that you are creating your best life. And you are simply just saying, this no longer works for me. There's no judgment about what it is, making it right or wrong. You're just saying, for me, that doesn't work. And I'm going to move to a different place. And when I think about it just elementally, like, oh, I'm just weeding my garden, it doesn't seem awful, but it is true that when you pull something out of the ground, like a weed, it is radical, right? You do have to say, is that serving me or not? And that is what the radical part, right? So when we pull that relationship out of our life, we pull that workplace, we pull that event, maybe that's something that is ongoing, we remove it. It is a little bit radical. And I believe it should be, because you're making a stand for you and for your best life. And so I think that boundaries are probably the healthiest things you could do for yourself, because too often we're distracted or we're being manipulated perhaps into another way of being because of the surroundings or the people that maybe just don't truly fulfill us anymore. And we talk about filling our cup. We can talk weeding our garden. We can talk about charging our batteries. So those are the things that I just really want to speak to as the upside of boundaries.
Yeah, very well put, actually, talking about weeding. And sometimes it will be difficult when you set boundaries because you have been doing the same thing for a while. And especially with, I don't want to go into the whole topic with that, but with empaths, when we have more compassion and we feel we are in that person's shoes and we'll give in and give in and give in. And then when you finally realize that it's draining you and you need to put a stop, it'll look really terrible. But what you said, Gretchen, about living our best life, and we are not talking about this pride and we are this great person, we want to live our best life. No, we're talking in a manner where when you take care of yourself, then you can give. That's really because we're not being self-centered, but
It's
it's
true.
important to take care of ourselves and live that best life so we can give out the best to others. We can be a fragrance, in other people's life and not an odor. And you can do that if you're all messed up and you have people really pulling on your strength and putting you back down, and you feel crushed and you don't know how to do life anymore. I think, and that's why it's so important to set boundaries. And I just love the way you talked about the garden, and tending to the flowers and removing the weeds. And it's so hard to remove weeds. Oh my gosh. Some of them have such deep roots, and you're like, I have a garden, and I'm like tugging and tugging, and finally sometimes it breaks. It doesn't even come out fully because I didn't dampen the soil enough to pull it out. I didn't have a shovel, maybe, and so how you do set the boundaries is also a whole thing by itself. We can speak on it for hours. Yeah,
Yes.
this is just like, find out how you need to set boundaries and do set boundaries to take care of yourself. The next thing I want to talk about is staying organized. So, people use calendars, lists, and apps. And so I would let you talk about that, Gretchen. What makes you tick and how do you stay organized?
I love that. I think organization sometimes feels like overwhelming, right? But I do think that I'm a list maker and I'm a pen and paper kind of girl, but I love that now there's so many apps that you can, get organized with, or you can create, whatever, like a home list or things you need to do, or a project list or a shopping list. And I think that's great. I think one thing that I've really learned is that if you take it from here and put it somewhere else, it's always going to be better to be able to facilitate organization in terms of like then applying it to your life versus keeping it all up here and going, I know I need to do this and I need to do this. And for me, I become very scattered, and I honestly probably don't do anything well. I do things in a random array of spattering to get it done, but I don't think that if I'm not organized, I don't create like a pathway to just kind of creating again what I think is self-care and maybe my best life. So one of the things that I think about is mind, body, and spirit, right? How are we nurturing those things? How are we organizing our life so that we have time to spend on our mind and our body and our spirit? So you talked about daily devotions. That is, organizing your day so that you can start out to pay attention to your spirit, right? To really nurture that. And then how do you then go on with your mind and your body? And my feeling is that the more that we have an ability to organize, and I'm not saying, to a T, everything planned for every minute, but have an ability to say, well, this is kind of how my day will look. This is how I plan to spend my time focused on this agenda, which it could be your mind, your body, your spirit, right? We have the ability to feel like we are really nurturing ourselves and maybe hitting the key aspects of who we are. Because one thing I wanted to mention is that I feel like God has given us specific talents and treasures, right? So to be able to honor that, I think that we have to organize our life such that we can really focus on what those are and how we can lean into that. Because I think really God wants us to. I think we're all unique and special, and we have different things that we offer the world. And my thinking is that if we try to organize, and for me, it's waking up and I have some things that are non-negotiables, I call them, right? So I have to water my plants. I do small things around the home to kind of get ready. You were talking about devotional. That's a non-negotiable. So you just start up and that's how you're going to organize your morning, right? You've got this, and it's like a domino. Once those get done, then you like, oh, okay. And then you have the ability to organize or orchestrate the rest of your day to really, I think, focus on the things that we've been given in terms of our talents and our treasures.
Yeah, and I think along with that, also the nurturing part of it is don't forget to stop and smell the roses. So, like, I think that's all part of nurturing. So, yesterday, for example, I went to a hotel here that's by the ocean, and I actually just needed to go there to get something done. I had to pay some bill and get something done. And I'm right there, and I go there often. And I was like, so you have a choice right now. I said to myself, you can either call Uber and right now, or you're here and you can just take the time to relax on those nice beach chairs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't hard to. I had to watch the time because I had to go somewhere else, but I had things to do. I was organized for the evening. I had to get there and pick up some things and I had to be home by 7. Um, and it was so wonderful to just say, you know what, just calm down and just sit here and take this in. And somehow, of all the times that I've been there, yesterday when I made that special time in between things to be there, it really nurtured me. I was just sitting there, just enjoying the presence of God in a very special way. I had nothing to say, nothing, just there. And
Mm.
so I think, yeah, we need to be organized, but that's very important. And it's a reminder for us. That's how, like you said, we need to honor the gifts and talents God has given us. I meet people who say, what did you do today? And they go, nothing. And it's kind of sad because they're talented people and they have done nothing. So make it
Mm.
a point, I would say, like if you're an artist, paint something even little, like a little scrap piece of paper, and then when you finish it, you go like, wow, I did that. But we stay organized, find out what we need to do, and that's so wonderful. What you do is make these non-negotiable lists, and life gets interrupted, and sometimes it can be that organized, but
Yeah.
as much as we can be, and then I think that's living our best life when you're organized.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And so the next topic I want to bring is staying connected. So right now, because of the pandemic, what happened, I think in a way the world became closer, Yes, because I think a lot of people throughout the world created a lot more relationships on the internet, you
I,
know,
I, mhm.
right? And so, how do we maintain that staying connected? I think physically with people on the internet, however that is. So, what are some of your suggestions, Gretchen?
I love that, Jules. And I think that I really try to think about people that I love and people that are in my circle, right? And we have different circles, right? We've got the close immediate family circle, and then it radiates out to friends, and then maybe like, just acquaintances, that kind of thing. But in the morning, I always do morning greetings, and I just reach out, because I have a phone. I text someone, I say, good morning, or I send a little, little cartoon or something fun. But for me, I just want them to know I'm thinking about them, right? And then I think that from that, there might, be a small conversation, that kind of thing. But I do think that you touched on something really important, and that is in the pandemic, I did create a little group where we meet weekly. So that to me is incredibly important in terms of connection. And you're right, over these 3 years, we've met via really just on Zoom. A couple of us have met in person, but overall, this connection has been all over Zoom. And we've been able to talk about, not only we started out just talking about our author journey as writers, but now we've really gotten deeper into life. And so I think finding ways that you can be connected on those kind of levels is really important, whether it's a group, that you've joined. And there's so many Facebook groups. That's what's really amazing now. Social media is amazing that way. If there's a crochet group, there's, a water skiing group, there's anything that you have a particular interest in, you can find a group to chat with, right? If you want to go deeper, or maybe you've got a project or a hobby or your research, and you can find people to do that with. I really still love one-on-one human contact. So I love being able to call a friend and meet up for coffee and speak to someone
Yeah.
face to face. I think that to me just really fills my cup. And then honoring the connections that you have in your life, whether it's a spouse or relationship, child, just trying to let them know that, they matter to you. And, as we know, some connections will be easier to maintain than others. And I think that you just have to start, again, prioritizing and maybe organizing what it is that, is really important to you in terms of reaching out and maintaining a relationship, because even relationships are work, whether they're friendships or, and another kind of relationship with family or a spouse or a loved one. It does require effort and your ability to put work into it, and, for you, right? And make those choices to honor your self-care.
Yeah, I want to share something very special. So, talking about staying connected. So, I'm a grandmother, but I still have connections with my kindergarten teacher. And that is like simply amazing. In fact, she just watched our last podcast on integrity and empathy. And she messaged me, and it's really special. Somebody, when I was 5 years old, and it's a long time. And staying connected, it it takes effort. I had to I found her and stayed in touch. I sent her my first book. And she was the person who when I was in kindergarten, she put a storybook in my hand. And 55 years later, when I wrote my first book, I sent her a copy and I said, "You one day did a favor by putting that storybook in my hand. I'm returning the favor." And it takes effort to stay connected.
Yes.
The other thing is when we meet someone face to face, or even, it's more workable face to face, but even, when we meet on Zoom, is to really treasure these people that we meet.
Mm.
I remember before the pandemic, I was visiting my daughter, and of course, I hugged everybody and I said bye. But somewhere towards, in the middle of the pandemic, we didn't go anywhere, we didn't visit anybody, we were isolating. And I just told her one day, I wish I'd hugged you longer, you know. And I think from then onwards, I make sure when I meet people to really look into their face and into their eyes and to value them.
Yeah.
Because till then it was like, life's normal. Like everybody's just going about, you go fly and see them again. But that wasn't to be, I didn't get to see them again.
Yeah.
And I lost my brother, and I never got to see him. I hadn't seen him for many years, and so it's like stay connected, because all these people in your life are so valuable for your own well-being. And I'm not trying to like teach anybody anything, but I'm just sharing how valuable when you meet somebody, even on Zoom, or don't be on the phone at the same time that you're trying to talk to this person, because that's very disrespectful.
Mm.
Like you're zooming, but then you're paying attention to a phone. Like
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about a phone call coming, but actually scrolling when you're talking to a person. That is so disrespectful, because this person is taking the time to be with you. Or if you're in a coffee shop, put the phone away, be 100% with this person. And I think that's a good takeaway for us, because like I always say, the most certain thing about life is its uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have to make every effort. Write letters. I always like to send cards. I still send cards. And I think that's such a good thing to do, your, handwritten card to somebody. It's short, maybe, but just saying, hey, how are you doing? I value you. I love you. Oh, I saw a seagull flying past and I was hoping the seagull was visiting you too, just something, just
Yeah.
anything, and just stay in touch. And staying connected is so important. It provides emotional relief and a sense of normalcy.
Mhm.
And to people who are out there struggling, you have lost a spouse and you're by yourself, try to connect. Try to connect with people. Not everybody will understand what you're going through, but make an effort to connect.
Yeah.
And I had a friend visiting, and when she left, I said, just hug me really long.
Mhm.
And that was so long ago, was that 2 weeks ago? And I haven't been able to hug anybody. I mean, you don't just hug anybody at all, right? You hug people you know.
Right.
But
Great.
that long hug has stayed with me now. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I just want to encourage people, stay connected. You have the privilege of being with people, value them, and stay connected. It is so important for your own emotional welfare and for your sense of normalcy.
I love that. Very, very true, Jules. I love all that.
Yeah. And so now, as sometimes we tend to take on a lot, because we feel we want to be in control, or we can do it better, or somebody else may mess it up, but we need to learn to delegate.
Mm.
Okay, so why
Very
don't you share
important.
something on that's the last point we'll talk about, is how to identify tasks, and how you learn to delegate and make your life a little easier.
I think delegation sometimes gets a bad rap, right? We think that, oh, I'm just pawning this job off, right? Because I'm not able to do it myself. But the truth is that every person that I've met that is a really spectacular manager, they've learned the art of delegation. And the reason that it works so well is that it frees you up to do the things that are really important to you. And by that, I'm saying that you delegate, but you also honor the person you're delegating to, right? If you say, gosh, today it would be really great if you could help me get XYZ done. And then it gives that person that you empower them to take control, responsibility of some of the things. And also you're expressing a need, right? So now we're working as a unit. We're working together, right? It's not just me doing it all and feeling like I'm burdened. No, it's me saying, wow, today it would really be helpful if you could, to my son, whatever, take out the garbage. And they're like, okay, gosh, this is me helping mom, right? Take out the garbage. So children are a great, that's great to delegate to, responsibilities, chore chart, all of that. speaking to a loved one that you live with, I need to do XYZ. How can we get this done today? Could you take me here? Could this, and then you bounce things off each other. That's really helpful. I think that delegation is actually, if we could change it a little bit to empowerment, I like that
I think
because
that's
I
great.
think that we feel empowered when, we get a task, right? And I am now assigned a task and I feel like I've got a purpose. So it's like all this things that are wrapped up into one. And then when I finish that, I'm empowered to come back to that person and say, hey, I took out the trash. And that person says, wow, good job. Thanks for doing that. And then it comes full circle. So I love delegation. I love the conversation about empowering other people in your circle to help you, to have strong conversations about, what your needs are. And I think that's all a part of delegation.
Yeah, and I think I love that what he said about the empowerment, because now I'm looking at some of the people that help me out, and
Yeah,
they really love to do it and they feel empowered, There's like, oh, we're going to help Jules, yeah, we're going to go pick up a mail, and they come back with so much of pride, and I'm always like, of course, thanking them for doing it, and
right.
I think that's such a great thing, and even taking an Uber,
Mhm.
it's kind of somebody's driving you somewhere and you're empowering them to drive you, and they feel so thrilled when they drop you off and you thank them very nicely, you know
Yes,
and they feel, wow, I dropped this person, and
yes.
so yeah, and learning to delegate is kind of a delicate task because you need to know who to delegate and how to do
It
that.
is. So I have an interesting situation with that. My daughter's getting married and she has lists and lists and lists about things that she needs to get done for the wedding. And I was hesitant as her mom to ask too much or overstep or maybe offer too much help when she didn't want much help. And we ended up having a conversation about that. And she said, oh, Mom, I'd love you to help. I just didn't know how much you wanted to do, and I didn't want to burden you. But I could really use the help. So could we meet on Fridays? And I would like to start, like with the list. And then I can ask you, what would you be willing to do? And I can ask other people in my circle. I can ask my fiance. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Laura, that's amazing. Because now we have not only lists, but we can delegate. And then those people are then responsible. It's not just all on you. And what I realize is that she was hesitant to ask because she thought she was going to burden me. And I was hesitant to ask because I didn't want to overstep. So I think that having a conversation about, hey, how can I help? Or, yeah, I'd be willing to take on some tasks. In other words, delegate to me, right?
Right.
Um, and now it's kind of opened up a little bit of a pathway where, oh, could you help me, XYZ? And I say responsibly with boundaries, yes or no. And then I come fully to be helpful and present to help her with that task or take on the task myself. So one of the examples is her fiance wanted a particular kind of lighting. And she was like, I don't know about that lighting, and feeling very, burdened and overwhelmed. And I said, well, you could just delegate lighting to him and he could be responsible for that. And she was like, oh, and it kind of took it off her plate, and then we have to be responsible about delegating too, right? Because then we have to be like, ooh, okay, I'm going to really honor that person and what their choices are. And I'm going to be okay with whatever lighting is chosen, right? So there's that part of delegating too, where when we delegate, we have to be responsible enough to be able to really let it go and allow that person to have responsibility for completing the task.
Yeah, that's really good. So I do hope that, people who are listening to us will enjoy and be able to take something home from this, little session that we did on self-care. Is prioritize self-care, seek support, set boundaries, stay organized, stay connected, and learn to delegate. And it just does make life much, much easier. And
Yes.
so we are going to wrap up for today, and also want to wish everybody, all the Americans, a happy 4th of July. And we hope to get back again next week with something new. I truly hope that you enjoyed. I love talking to Gretchen. As you can see, she has a lot of wisdom, and she always gives a nice little spin to things. And I really enjoy her conversations. So once again, we're just two women taking our conversation out of the Zoom room, um, between us to the world. And so share this, share the YouTube video with other people. And it's not for monetization, because I haven't put it for monetization. Just share it so people can, probably take away something and help them in their journey in life. So thank you, Gretchen, for being here, and once again for being such a good friend and for being my partner on the podcast.
Thank you, Jules. All right, take care of you.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. God
Bye-bye.
bless. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Girl from Bombay podcast. To connect and share your story, visit our website, authorjuleswilliams.com. That's authorjuleswilliams.com. The Girl from Bombay podcast is a Puzzles Media House production.